My name is Margaret, I'm 72 years old, and I'm speaking to you all the way from North Carolina, USA. Before I go on with this shocking story that almost cost me my life, please make sure you subscribe, like this story, and click that notification button so you don't miss the next chapters. And also, I would love to know, from which part of the country are you watching from? Go ahead and drop it in the comments, because this story is about to shake you to your bones. Now let's get straight into it. It was exactly 5 a.m. when I heard it. My daughter-in-law, Emily, thought I was asleep. But I wasn't. I woke up earlier than usual because of the sound of her phone ringing softly in the kitchen. My bones ache a lot these days, so when I couldn't fall back asleep, I quietly shuffled out of my room to get some warm water. That's when I heard her whispering, her voice sharp and dangerous, like a snake hissing in the dark. The meds are making her confused. Tomorrow, I'll get her committed. Then I just need to get rid of my wife and all that money is ours. My blood ran cold. I froze by the corner of the hallway, my hand gripping the wall to steady myself. Did I just hear right? She was talking about me and my son. My own flesh and blood. I pressed my ear closer to the wall. She laughed softly, then added, "Don't worry. She won't see it coming. The old woman is already half gone." My knees almost buckled. Confused? Committed? Get rid of my son? All that money? Oh Lord, she was plotting something terrible. Right then and there I knew one thing. If Emily thought I was just a weak, harmless old woman, she was dead wrong. She had no idea who she was dealing with. I may be 72, but I still have enough fight left in me. And let me just say this. She was about to get the biggest surprise of her life during that morning show she loved so much. But before I tell you what I did, let me take you back because you need to understand how we got here. Emily came into our lives 5 years ago when she married my only son, Daniel. My Daniel was the pride of my heart. He was kind, hardworking, and he had just started a small TV morning show here in our town. Things were finally looking up for him after years of struggle. And when Emily appeared, it was like a dream come true. At least, that's what I thought back then. She was beautiful. Too beautiful if you ask me. She had that kind of charm that could blind even the wisest man. Daniel fell for her like a moth to a flame. And as his mother, I wanted to be happy for him. I smiled, I hugged her, I even prayed over their marriage. I welcomed her into my home when times got rough, and they needed a place to stay. But slowly, I began to notice things. Emily had a sweetness on her lips but a coldness in her eyes. She would whisper things to Daniel about me. Little lies that made him pull away. She would accidentally give me the wrong pills sometimes, or forget to help me up the stairs. First I brushed it off. Maybe she was just careless. Maybe I was being paranoid. But the signs grew clearer. She didn't like that my name was on the deed of the house. She didn't like that Daniel still respected me. She didn't like that I was in the picture at all. The breaking point came 2 weeks before that dreadful morning. I had fallen sick with a strong fever. Emily was the one giving me my medication. I trusted her. But something felt wrong. The pills she gave me made me dizzy, forgetful, and weak. I could barely stand some days. Daniel didn't notice because he was busy preparing for his show. And Emily? She would smile and pat my shoulder saying, "Poor mama, your memory is going. Don't worry, I'll take care of you." Take care of me? She was slowly poisoning me. So when I overheard her call at 5 a.m., everything finally made sense. The confusion wasn't from age. It was her plan. She wanted to declare me insane, get me locked away, and then get rid of my son. The only obstacle standing between her and his inheritance. My heart pounded like a drum. I knew I had only hours to act before Emily carried out her plan. If I confronted her right then, she would deny everything and maybe even move faster to silence me. I needed to be smarter. And let me tell you, for all her cunning, Emily underestimated one thing. The strength of a desperate mother protecting her child. I spent that day pretending to be weak, pretending not to notice her sly smiles and careful glances. I prayed under my breath, asking God to give me wisdom and courage. And as the sun rose higher, I began to plot my next move. Daniel's morning show was scheduled for 9 a.m. Emily loved to be there, playing the role of the supportive wife in front of the cameras. But what she didn't know was that I had found a way to slip a little surprise into her big moment. something that would reveal her true colors for all to see. As I prepared myself, my hands shook, not from fear but from determination. I kept hearing her words in my head. The meds are making her confused. Tomorrow, I'll get her committed. Tomorrow? No, Emily. It wouldn't be tomorrow. It would be today. And you won't see it coming. That morning, when the cameras rolled, something happened on Daniel's show that no one expected. Let's just say, the mask Emily wore for so long slipped right off. And what the world saw left everyone in shock. But before I reveal what happened on live television, let me take you a step further back, to the very first moment I suspected Emily was dangerous. It started with something small, something you might even laugh at. But it was the seed of doubt that grew into the storm that nearly destroyed us all. It was a Sunday afternoon, and I told you earlier that something shocking happened during Daniel's morning show, and now you're about to hear it. The studio lights were blazing that morning. Daniel, my only son, stood tall and handsome, dressed in his suit, ready to greet the viewers. Emily was right by his side, smiling sweetly as if butter wouldn't melt in her mouth. Nobody watching would have guessed that behind that smile was a heart as black as night. I sat in the audience, hunched in my seat, clutching my walking stick. Emily had slipped my medicine into my tea just before we left the house. She thought I swallowed it, but I had spat it into a napkin when she wasn't looking. My head was clear, and my eyes were sharper than ever. The show began as usual. Daniel introduced the day's guest. The cameras panned to the crowd, and Emily laughed at all the right moments. She leaned close to Daniel, whispering in his ear like a perfect wife. But I wasn't fooled. Now here's where my plan came in. The night before, while Emily was sleeping, I had gone through her handbag. Inside, I found the small brown bottle of pills she had been giving me. On the label, written clearly, were the words, "Strong sedatives, not for elderly use." My heart almost stopped when I saw it. She had been drugging me, slowly killing me while telling everyone I was losing my mind. I knew no one would believe me if I said it. So, I tucked the bottle deep inside my apron pocket and waited. During the show, right when Daniel asked Emily a question about family support, I stood up from the audience. My voice shook at first, but I forced it to be loud enough for the cameras. "Tell them, Emily," I shouted. "Tell them how you've been drugging me so you can take all my son's money." The room went silent. Daniel's eyes widened. Emily's fake smile froze, and for the first time, she looked like a cornered animal. She tried to laugh it off. "Oh, Mama, you must be confused again," she said sweetly. But that was when I pulled the little brown bottle out of my pocket and held it high for everyone to see. The cameras zoomed in. The audience gasped. Daniel snatched the bottle from my hand, his face pale. He read the label out loud. And just like that, Emily's mask slipped. Her voice turned sharp, her eyes wild. "You stupid old woman!" she screamed before realizing she was still live on TV. The audience gasped again. Daniel stumbled back, and I felt the room spin as chaos broke out. But just when I thought the truth had been revealed, Emily did something so shocking, so extreme, that it left everyone frozen in fear. The studio was so silent you could hear a pin drop. The cameras were still rolling. The audience was frozen in shock. Daniel's hand trembled as he held up the bottle of pills, staring at the label like it was poison. And Emily, sweet smiling Emily, was no longer sweet. Her face twisted with rage, her voice sharp as a knife. "You stupid old woman!" she screamed, forgetting herself completely. The words echoed through the studio speakers. Every viewer at home heard it live. For a second, no one moved. My heart pounded so hard I thought I might faint, but I stood tall, leaning on my stick. I wanted the world to see her for who she truly was. Daniel turned to her, his voice low and shaking. "Emily, what is this? What have you been giving my mother?" Emily's eyes darted around the room, wild and desperate. She knew the truth was out, but she wasn't going down quietly. She grabbed Daniel's arm and hissed, "Don't listen to her. She's old. She's confused. She's trying to ruin us." But Daniel shook his head. "This is proof, Emily. These pills." Before he could finish, Emily did something so shocking that the whole room gasped. She snatched the bottle from his hand, hurled it across the studio, and screamed at the top of her lungs. "You think you're so smart? You think you can expose me? I've been taking care of you both, and this is how you repay me." Her voice cracked as she ranted, her mask fully gone. She didn't care about the cameras anymore. She didn't care about appearances. All that hatred she had hidden for years came spilling out like fire. The audience began murmuring. Some people shouted, others tried to calm her down, but Emily wasn't listening. She stormed toward me, her heels clicking hard against the floor. I clutched my stick tighter, praying under my breath. My blood ran cold, but I didn't flinch. "Everything you own should have been ours," she snarled. "The house, the money, everything. But no, you had to stay alive. You had to keep holding on." Gasps filled the studio. People couldn't believe what they were hearing. And right then Daniel finally saw it, the truth he had refused to see for years. "Emily," his voice cracked. Is this why you married me? For money?" Emily spun toward him, her face pale, eyes wide like she'd been caught in a trap. For a moment she tried to soften her tone. "No, baby, no. I love you. Don't listen to her. She's just jealous." But it was too late. Her outburst had revealed everything. Daniel's shoulders sagged. His face turned gray with betrayal. "You've been drugging my mother. You plan to put her away. How could you?" Emily's chest heaved. Her hands shook. And then in the most chilling tone I had ever heard she whispered, "Because she was in the way. And soon you will be too." The audience screamed. Security guards rushed forward. But Emily wasn't done. In one wild move, she grabbed a glass mug from the host's table and smashed it against the edge, the sharp edges glinting under the studio lights. People panicked. Some ran for the doors. The camera struggled to follow. Daniel stepped in front of me, shielding me with his body. His voice was firm, though I could hear the fear in it. "Emily, put it down." Her eyes blazed like fire. "No. You don't understand. We could have had everything. But she ruined it." She pointed the broken glass at me, her hand shaking. At that moment, I thought it was the end. I whispered a prayer, asking God to give me courage. My whole body trembled, but I refused to back down. "Emily," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. "You can lie, you can deceive, but you can't escape the truth. And the whole world is watching you right now." The weight of my words hit her like a stone. Her chest rose and fell rapidly. She glanced around at the cameras, the flashing lights, the horrified audience. She realized the mask was gone forever. But instead of surrendering, she let out a chilling scream and lunged forward. Everything happened so fast. The security guards grabbed her arm just in time, wresting the glass from her hand. She fought like a wild animal, kicking, scratching, screaming. Daniel held me close, trembling, as they dragged her to the ground. Her voice echoed through the studio as she cursed and spat. No longer the sweet wife everyone admired, but the monster she truly was. And then silence. The guards pinned her down, the glass shards scattered across the floor. The audience sat stunned, unable to believe what they had just witnessed. Daniel collapsed into a chair, his hands covering his face. I stood, still clutching my stick, my whole body shaking. My secret was finally out, but so was Emily's. The world had seen her true self, live on national television. The producers cut to commercials and chaos filled the room. Some people tried to comfort Daniel. Others gathered around me, asking if I was all right. I nodded, though my knees felt weak. But deep inside, I knew this was far from over. Emily might have been exposed, but women like her don't give up easily. She was cunning, dangerous, and now she had nothing left to lose. That night, after everything calmed down, Daniel and I went back home. The house felt heavy, the air thick with tension. Daniel barely spoke. He just kept staring at the floor, broken by betrayal. I wanted to comfort him, but my own heart was heavy with fear. Because as I lay in bed, I couldn't shake the feeling that Emily wasn't done with us yet. And I was right. The next morning, when I went to fetch the mail, I found something shoved under the front door. An envelope. No name, no address. Just a piece of paper inside with one chilling sentence written in red ink. "This isn't over." I stared at that note, my hands trembling. The words were short, but they carried enough venom to chill my bones. This isn't over. Emily had been dragged out of the studio like a wild beast, exposed in front of the whole town. I thought that would be the end of her power. But now, standing on my porch with that letter in my hand, I knew she wasn't finished. I walked back inside slowly, clutching the paper to my chest. Daniel was sitting on the couch, his face pale, his eyes empty. He looked like a man who had aged 10 years overnight. "Daniel," I whispered, handing him the note. He read it, his jaw tightening. "She's threatening us, Mama." His voice cracked. "I should have seen this sooner. I should have protected you." I touched his hand gently. "Don't blame yourself, son. Evil hides in pretty faces. She fooled us both." For the first time in years, Daniel broke down. He buried his face in his hands, sobbing quietly. My heart ached for him, but I couldn't let my guard down. I had lived too long, seen too much, to think this was just a simple threat. Emily was planning something bigger. That evening, as the sun set, the house grew darker than usual. Every creak in the floor, every shadow in the hallway made me jump. I locked all the doors and windows. Still, unease sat heavy in my chest. I decided to check the backyard before night fully settled. With my stick in one hand and a flashlight in the other, I stepped outside. The crickets chirped, the air smelled of damp earth, and everything seemed normal. But then I saw it. On the back fence, carved roughly into the wood, were the same chilling words as the note. "This isn't over." My breath caught in my throat. My heart hammered so hard I thought it might burst. She had been here. She had come close enough to touch our home, to remind me she was watching. I staggered back inside, slamming the door shut. Daniel looked up, alarmed. "Mama, what is it?" I held up the flashlight with trembling hands. "She's been here. She's marking the house." Daniel's face drained of color. He rushed to the phone, dialing the police. But deep inside, I knew the police couldn't protect us forever. Emily wasn't just angry. She was obsessed. And an obsessed woman is the most dangerous enemy of all. That night, as I lay in bed, I whispered a prayer for strength. But before I could close my eyes, I heard it, the faint sound of footsteps outside my window. And then the sound of a knife scratching against the glass. The sound of that knife against the glass was like nails scratching across my soul. My breath caught in my throat. I froze in my bed, my ears straining. At first, I thought maybe my mind was playing tricks on me. Maybe the fear from the note and the fence had gotten into my head. But no, I heard it again. Scratch, scratch, scratch. Slow, deliberate, like someone was testing the glass, trying to see how easily it would give way. My body went cold. My hand reached for my cane by the side of the bed, gripping it so hard my knuckles turned white. I wanted to scream for Daniel, but something in me knew if I made a sound, whoever was outside would act faster. I slid quietly off the bed and crawled toward the corner of the room. My heart pounded so loud I was sure it could be heard through the walls. Then came a shadow, a dark, shifting outline against the curtain. The knife pressed harder, making a tiny squeak as it dug into the glass. My knees shook. I had never in my life been so certain of death standing at my doorstep. Suddenly, a loud creak came from the hallway. Daniel. He had woken up. The shadow froze. The scratching stopped. For a long second, silence swallowed the room. Then, like smoke vanishing in the wind, the shadow slipped away. I gasped for air, my chest heaving. Daniel rushed in, his hair messy, his face pale. "Mama? What's wrong?" I heard something. I pointed to the window with a trembling finger. "She was here," I whispered. "She was right there." Daniel's eyes widened. He yanked open the curtains, but all we saw was the empty yard under the silver moonlight. Nothing moved, nothing stirred. But I knew what I had heard. I knew what I had seen. Daniel clenched his jaw, grabbed the baseball bat he kept in his closet, and stormed outside. I begged him not to, but he wouldn't listen. He searched the yard, the fence, even the street, but found nothing. Emily was too clever. Too fast. He came back in, frustrated, sweat dripping down his face. "The police are useless," he muttered. "They'll just say we're imagining things." I touched his arm gently. "No, son. They'll say I'm imagining things. That I'm the confused old woman. That's what she wants, to make me look crazy." Daniel's eyes softened with guilt. "Mama, I'm so sorry I ever doubted you." We locked the house tighter than ever that night. but my eyes never closed. Every creak, every whisper of wind against the roof, sent shivers down my spine. Emily was out there, waiting, planning her next move. The next morning, Daniel left early for the studio, insisting he couldn't cancel the show. "If I stop now, it'll look like she's winning," he said. I understood, but fear not at me. Emily would use his absence as an opportunity. I spent the morning moving through the house, checking every lock, every window, every blind spot. I prayed while I worked, begging for strength, for protection. Around noon, I heard the mail slot creak. My heart jumped, but it was only the mailman's shadow. I waited until his footsteps faded before I opened the door. There, among the bills and advertisements, was another envelope. My fingers shook as I tore it open. Inside was a single photograph. It was a picture of me, taken through the living room window the night before. I nearly dropped it. My skin prickled with goosebumps. She hadn't just been at my window. She had been close enough to take my picture while I sat in my own chair, thinking I was safe. Written in the corner of the photo were 4 words. "I'm coming for you." I staggered back, clutching the photo like it was a snake. My head spun. I had to sit down before I collapsed. The house suddenly felt smaller, darker, like the walls were closing in. Every corner seemed to hide her face. Every shadow seemed alive. I knew then that waiting would get me killed. If Emily wanted to play this game, I had to be 2 steps ahead. So I began to plan. I gathered what little strength I had left and went to the attic. Up there, covered in dust, was an old wooden chest. Inside was a box of my late husband's belongings. Among them was a small revolver. My hands trembled as I lifted it. It hadn't been touched in over 30 years, but the metal was still cold, still heavy, still deadly. I whispered to myself, "Lord, forgive me if it comes to this. But I won't let her destroy us." Just then the phone rang. The sound nearly made me drop the revolver. I set it down carefully and rushed to pick up the receiver. "Hello." My voice shook. There was silence. Then a low, familiar chuckle. "Emily, enjoying your picture?" she whispered. My blood turned to ice. "Leave us alone, Emily." I snapped. "You've already ruined enough." Her laugh grew louder. "Oh no, Margaret. I'm just getting started. You think last night scared you? Wait until tonight." The line went dead. My knees gave way and I sank to the floor, the phone clattering beside me. Tears burned in my eyes, but I wiped them away. Crying wouldn't save me. Action would. When Daniel came home that evening, I showed him the photo. His face hardened like stone. "She's stalking you. She's getting bolder." He gripped my shoulders. "Mama, we can't stay here. We have to leave tonight." But before I could answer, a loud crash echoed from the back of the house. We froze. Another crash. The sound of wood splintering. Someone was forcing their way inside. Daniel grabbed the bat. I clutched my cane. My heart thundered. And then from the darkness of the hallway, a voice rang out, cold, sharp, dripping with hatred. "Did you miss me?" The voice echoed through the hallway like a knife cutting through the air. My whole body stiffened. Daniel tightened his grip on the baseball bat, his knuckles white. "Emily," he growled. "You need to leave before this gets worse." But her laugh sent chills racing down my spine. It was soft at first, then louder, almost unhinged. "Worse? Daniel, darling, this is only the beginning." The sound of her boots creaked against the wooden floor as she stepped deeper into the house. My heart pounded in my chest. She had broken through the back door. Shards of wood and glass glittered faintly behind her. I whispered to Daniel, "She's dangerous. Don't try to reason with her." He nodded, his eyes locked on the shadow moving closer. Emily stepped into the living room, her hair wild, her eyes blazing. In her hand was a crowbar, the kind used for breaking locks. She swung it once hard against the wall, leaving a dent. The sound made me flinch. "You both ruined everything," she shouted, spit flying from her mouth. "We could have had the life we deserved. But you," she jabbed the crowbar toward me. "You old witch, you stood in my way." Daniel stepped between us, raising the bat. "Don't you touch her." The two of them stood facing each other like animals about to pounce. I clutched my cane, praying silently, begging God to give us strength. Emily smirked. "What are you going to do, Daniel? Hit your wife on live television part 2? Do it. I dare you." Daniel's grip tightened, but he hesitated. I could see the pain in his eyes. Despite everything, she was still his wife, and raising a hand against her tore at his heart. That hesitation was all she needed. With a sudden scream, Emily lunged forward, swinging the crowbar. Daniel barely blocked it with the bat. The sound of metal against wood ringing through the room. Sparks of panic shot through me. They wrestled, pushing and pulling, the crowbar clanging against the furniture. "Stop this, Emily!" Daniel yelled, his voice straining. But Emily was gone, lost in her rage. "No. I'll finish this tonight." I knew I couldn't just stand there. My eyes darted to the mantel where a heavy brass lamp sat. My hands shook, but I forced myself forward. Grabbing the lamp, I raised it high. As Daniel and Emily struggled, I swung with every ounce of strength left in me. The lamp connected with a loud crack. Emily screamed, stumbling back, clutching her shoulder. The crowbar clattered to the floor. For a moment, everything went still. Daniel gasped for breath. I dropped the lamp, my hands trembling. But then Emily looked up at me, her eyes burning with fury. Blood trickled down her arm, yet she smiled. A smile so chilling it froze me in place. "You think that will stop me?" she whispered. "You've only made me stronger." And before we could move, she pulled something from inside her coat. A gun. The metallic glint of the gun froze everything. My breath hitched. Daniel instinctively stepped in front of me, shielding me with his body, though I could see his hands shaking. Emily's eyes gleamed with a dangerous light. Her smile twisted. "Now we can settle this once and for all," she hissed, raising the weapon with terrifying calm. "Emily, please," Daniel pleaded, his voice trembling. "Put it down. You're not thinking straight." Her laughter echoed, high-pitched and unhinged. "Not thinking straight? Daniel, I've never been more clear. The only thing standing between me and peace is her." She pointed the gun at me. I gasped, stumbling back, my knees weakening. "Why are you doing this?" I whispered, clutching my chest. Emily tilted her head, her hair falling wildly over her face. "Because you took him from me. You stole the only love I had left. Do you think I don't see it? The way you look at her, Daniel? You'd rather die for her than live for me." Daniel raised his hand slowly, trying to calm her. "Emily, I don't want anyone to get hurt. You're sick. This isn't you." But Emily only shook her head violently, tears streaming down her cheeks. Her finger tightened on the trigger. The world shrank in that instant. My ears rang with the pounding of my heartbeat. I thought of my mother's death, my father's betrayal, the years of pain I had endured. And now, standing in my own living room, death was staring me down once again. "Emily," I said softly, trying to steady my voice, "you don't have to do this. I forgive you for everything. Just let go of the hate." For a brief second, her eyes flickered. The madness wavered. But then, with a scream that came from the deepest pit of her soul, she aimed directly at me and fired. The bang shattered the silence like thunder. I flinched, expecting pain, expecting the world to end. But instead, Daniel cried out. He staggered backward, clutching his side. Blood seeped through his shirt, spreading quickly. My heart dropped. "Daniel!" I screamed, rushing to catch him as he fell to his knees. Emily's eyes widened, shocked at what she had done. The gun trembled in her hand. No, 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 no. That wasn't supposed to happen," she muttered, her voice breaking. I cradled Daniel's head in my lap, tears streaming down my face. "Stay with me, please. Don't leave me now." He tried to speak, his lips trembling. "Run. Graham, run." But I shook my head. "No. I'm not leaving you." Emily screamed again, her voice raw, torn between rage and guilt. She pointed the gun at me once more, her hand shaking violently. "Stop!" I shouted, my own fear turning into fire. "If you want to kill me, then do it. But know this, you'll never win. You'll never break me. Even if you take my life, my story will haunt you forever." Emily froze, her eyes locking with mine. My words seemed to strike something deep inside her. Her hands trembled harder, the gun wavering. But before anything else could happen, the sound of sirens pierced the night. Red and blue lights flashed through the windows. The neighbors had called the police. Emily's head snapped toward the door, panic flashing across her face. No, they can't take me." Not again. Daniel groaned in my arms, his breath shallow. Help me. Terror and hope warred inside me. The police were here, but would they arrive in time? Emily stepped back, her wild eyes darting between the gun, me, and the flashing lights. She pressed the weapon to her own temple. If I can't have peace, then I'll take it myself, she screamed. Emily, no. I cried out, reaching a hand toward her. But just as she pulled the trigger, the front door burst open. Police officers stormed in, shouting commands. Drop the weapon. Drop it now. The gun flew from Emily's hand as one officer tackled her to the ground. She screamed and thrashed, but they pinned her down, handcuffing her as she spat curses at us. I collapsed against the couch, holding Daniel close, sobbing uncontrollably. Relief and anguish crashed over me in waves. An officer rushed to my side. Ma'am, we need to get him to a hospital now. I nodded frantically, my hands stained with Daniel's blood. Please save him. Don't let him die. As they carried him out on a stretcher, Daniel's hand found mine. He squeezed weakly, his eyes half closed. I love you, he whispered. And then his hand went limp. My scream tore through the night. The officers pulled me back as the ambulance doors slammed shut. My body shook, my heart breaking all over again. In that moment, I didn't know if Daniel would live or die. All I knew was that my life had once again been ripped apart. And I was left standing in the ruins, praying for a miracle. The hospital smelled of disinfectant and fear. I sat in the waiting room. My hands clasped so tightly that my knuckles turned white. Every second dragged like an hour. The echoes of Daniel's words, "I love you," kept replaying in my head, as if they might be the last thing I'd ever hear from him. A nurse finally approached, her face calm but unreadable. My heart leapt. "Are you the mother?" she asked. I nodded quickly, my throat dry. "Yes. Please, is he alive? Tell me my son is alive." She offered a small, tired smile. "Your son made it through surgery. The bullet missed his vital organs, but he lost a lot of blood. He's in recovery now," I gasped, covering my mouth as tears spilled down my cheeks. Relief crashed over me so powerfully I almost fainted. "Thank you, Lord," I whispered. The nurse touched my shoulder gently. "He's not out of danger yet. The next 24 hours are critical. You need to stay strong for him." I nodded, wiping my face, my chest aching with both gratitude and fear. Hours passed. I sat by Daniel's bedside once they allowed me in, holding his hand gently. He looked pale, fragile, tubes and wires surrounding him, but he was breathing. And that was enough. "Don't you dare leave me, Daniel," I whispered. "We've come too far. You've got to fight." Suddenly, a shadow appeared in the doorway. My heart jumped, fearing the worst, but it was a police officer. "Ma'am," he said softly, removing his cap. "I wanted to let you know Emily has been taken into custody. She's being held without bail until her hearing." I let out a shaky breath. Good. She deserves to face justice. But even as I said the words, unease stirred inside me. Emily had proven again and again how far she would go. Something told me she wasn't finished. Not yet. That night, I stayed awake in the hard hospital chair, watching over Daniel. Every beep of the monitor, every twitch of his body, kept me on edge. I prayed silently, begging God to keep him safe. Just when I thought the night would pass without trouble, I noticed something strange. On the small tray by the bed, where the nurses usually left supplies, there was a folded piece of paper. I frowned, reaching for it. My stomach tightened as I opened it and saw the words, scrawled in messy handwriting. "If I can't finish him, someone else will. Sleep tight." My blood ran cold. I jerked up from the chair, my eyes darting around the room. How had this note gotten in here? The police said Emily was locked up. Did she still have people on the outside? I clutched Daniel's hand, my mind spinning. The hospital suddenly felt less like a safe haven, and more like a trap. And in that moment I realized, this fight was far from over. The note shook me to my core. My hands trembled as I reread those chilling words. "If I can't finish him, someone else will. Sleep tight." Felt impossible. Emily was locked away. Yet here was proof that her reach extended beyond prison walls. My heart pounded so loud I thought the machines in Daniel's room could hear it. I glanced around nervously. The hallway outside was quiet, too quiet. The nurse's station light flickered in the distance, and the faint buzz of the fluorescent bulbs only deepened my dread. I stood quickly, clutching the paper in one hand. My first thought was to run to the police officers stationed at the end of the hall. But something stopped me, the thought that whoever placed this note might still be inside watching me right now. I swallowed hard and leaned over Daniel, whispering in his ear though he lay unconscious. "Don't worry, son. Mama won't let them hurt you again." Just then I heard footsteps approaching. My breath caught. The door creaked open slowly, and a tall man in scrubs stepped inside. His badge glinted under the light, but his eyes were wrong, cold, shifty, like a predator sizing up its prey. "Evening," he said, his voice low. "Just here to check the machines." I clutched my chest, forcing a shaky smile. "The nurse just checked them an hour ago." He shrugged, moving closer. "Sometimes things change quickly. Better safe than sorry." But something inside me screamed, "This man isn't here to help." I subtly slid the note behind my back, keeping it hidden. "What's your name, son?" I asked, trying to steady my voice. His lips curled into a smirk. "Names don't matter. Results do." In that moment my blood froze. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a syringe filled with clear liquid. The sight nearly knocked the air out of me. "No!" I shouted, stepping between him and Daniel's bed. "What are you doing?" His face hardened. "Orders. Orders." My voice cracked. "From who?" "You already know." His eyes gleamed with malice. "Emily. It had to be Emily. Even behind bars, she had found a way to send her poison into our lives." The man lunged forward, but I reacted faster than I thought possible. With every ounce of strength my old body had, I swung my cane and struck his wrist. The syringe flew out of his hand, landing with a clatter on the floor. He cursed, grabbing my arm roughly. Pain shot through me, but I fought back, clawing at his face, screaming at the top of my lungs. "Help! Somebody help!" The monitor beside Daniel beeped wildly, the room filling with chaos. The man tried to silence me, covering my mouth with his hand, but I bit down hard, tasting blood. He roared in anger, shoving me against the wall. I crumpled, gasping for breath, but before he could pick up the syringe again, the door burst open. 2 security guards and a nurse rushed in, alerted by my screams. "Step away from the patient," one of the guards barked. The man tried to bolt, but the guards tackled him to the ground. The syringe rolled across the floor, stopping at my feet. I picked it up with trembling fingers, holding it far away as if it were a snake ready to strike. The nurse bent down quickly, checking Daniel, while the guards cuffed the man. His face twisted with fury as he glared at me. "You think this is over?" he spat. "She always wins." I shivered at his words. The police arrived moments later, dragging the imposter away. My knees buckled, but I refused to leave Daniel's side. I told the officers everything. The note, the syringe, the way he slipped into the room like a shadow. One officer's jaw tightened. "We'll tighten security." "You did good, ma'am. You saved your son's life." But my heart refused to rest. If Emily could send someone into a hospital, what else could she do? When the room finally calmed, I sat back down, clutching Daniel's limp hand. My chest heaved, my body shaking from the fight. "I'm still here," I whispered to him. "I'll always be here." But as the night dragged on, unease gnawed at me. What if the guards hadn't arrived in time? What if there were others out there, waiting for another chance? And then, just as I began to drift into restless sleep, I heard a sound that froze my blood. The hospital intercom crackled to life, a voice cutting through the static. It wasn't a nurse. It wasn't a doctor. It was Emily. Her voice was cold, mocking, dripping with venom. "Hello, Mama. Did you really think walls could stop me? The game has only begun." The intercom went silent. I clutched Daniel's hand tighter, my heart hammering in my chest. She was inside this hospital. Somewhere. Watching. Emily's voice echoing through the hospital speakers replayed in my mind like a curse. I sat frozen, staring at the intercom, my grip on Daniel's hand so tight my knuckles ached. She was locked away. Yet her words filled every corner of this building. I forced myself to stand. Fear had been chasing me all night, but I knew I couldn't let it paralyze me now. If Emily was inside this hospital, or if she had allies here, then Daniel's life was still hanging by a thread. I stepped out into the hallway. It was too quiet, the kind of silence that made my skin crawl. A nurse hurried past with her head down, not meeting my eyes. 2 security guards stood at the elevator, but even they seemed unsettled. Who controls the intercom system? I demanded, walking straight to the nurse's station. My voice carried more fire than I'd felt in years. The young nurse at the desk looked startled. It should only be the staff in the main office, ma'am. Then check it. I snapped. Find out who just hijacked it. She picked up the phone, hands trembling as she called the office. I leaned in close listening. Moments later, her face went pale. They say no one made that announcement. My blood ran cold. I shook my head. Don't play with me, child. I know what I heard. It was her voice. The nurse's eyes darted nervously toward the corridor. Maybe someone plugged into the system manually. I didn't wait for more excuses. I turned and marched back to Daniel's room, cane tapping furiously on the tile floor. If Emily could reach into this hospital, then I had to be sharper, faster, and 2 steps ahead. When I got back, Daniel stirred slightly, his lips moving. I rushed to his side. Daniel? I'm here. You're safe. His eyes fluttered open, dazed. He whispered, Mama, don't let her win. Tears welled in my eyes. I won't, my son. I swear it. Before I could say more, the overhead lights flickered, then dimmed. A low hum filled the halls, followed by an eerie silence. Power outage. The machines in Daniel's room beeped wildly, switching to backup. My chest tightened. If the power failed completely, he might not survive the night. And then in the shadowy glow of the emergency lights, I saw it. A figure stood just outside the glass window of the room, staring in at us. Tall. Still. Waiting. I couldn't see the face, but I could feel the weight of their gaze pressing down on me. And in their hand, gleaming faintly in the dim light, was a knife. The emergency lights flickered weakly, casting long, distorted shadows across the walls. I pressed myself closer to Daniel's bed, shielding him with my body. My pulse thundered in my ears as I stared at the figure outside the glass. The knife glinted in the dim light, its point tapping slowly against the window, tick, tick, tick. Every tap was a warning. Every tap said, I can reach you whenever I want. I forced myself to stand, though my knees wobbled. My cane felt heavier than ever, but I gripped it tight. Who are you? I shouted through the glass. My voice cracked but carried enough fire to fill the silence. The figure tilted its head but said nothing. Then, with a sudden movement, it slammed the blade against the window. I gasped, pulling back. The glass rattled, but it didn't break. Daniel groaned softly behind me. His machines beeped in protest, as if reminding me that every second of this madness put his fragile life at risk. I turned quickly, pressing the nurse's call button. Nothing. The blackout had knocked the system dead. Panic clawed at me. I couldn't rely on anyone else. I had to protect Daniel myself. I grabbed the chair by the bedside and dragged it toward the door, jamming it under the handle. My heart hammered in my chest as the footsteps outside grew louder, closer. Then click. The handle moved. Someone was trying to get in. Stay away. I screamed. My voice shook the walls, but my words didn't stop the handle from rattling harder. The door creaked against the chair, the pressure building. My palms grew slick with sweat as I gripped my cane tighter. Suddenly, the rattling stopped. Silence filled the room again. I held my breath, straining to listen. For a moment, I thought they had gone. But then, a new sound pierced the quiet. A sharp scratching, metal against metal. They were trying to pick the lock. My legs trembled, but my spirit burned brighter. I limped quickly to the drawer near the sink, yanking it open. Inside, I found nothing but gloves and gauze. My heart sank. No weapons, no tools. Then my eyes fell on the syringe the imposter had dropped earlier, still sealed inside the evidence bag the police had left behind. My hands shook as I picked it up. I didn't know what was inside, but if it came down to it, I would use it. The scratching stopped. The lock clicked. The door burst open, the chair skidding across the floor. A man stormed inside, his face covered with a mask, the knife gleaming in his hand. His eyes locked on Daniel's bed. Move, he growled. I planted myself in front of my son, raising the syringe in one hand and the cane in the other. My voice thundered with every ounce of strength left in me. You'll touch him only over my dead body. The man smirked beneath the mask. That can be arranged. He lunged forward. I swung the cane with all my might, striking his arm. The knife clattered to the floor, but he was stronger, faster. He grabbed my wrist, twisting it painfully until I cried out. The syringe slipped from my hand, sliding under the bed. No! I shouted, clawing at him with my free hand. He shoved me back hard, my body slamming against the monitor. Pain shot through my ribs, but I refused to fall. I grabbed the closest thing I could, Daniel's four-pole, and swung it wildly. The metal rod cracked against his shoulder. He cursed, stumbling. I lunged for the knife on the floor, but he tackled me. We rolled, my back scraping against the tiles, the cold steel pressing against my throat. His eyes burned with fury. She said you'd fight, he hissed. She said you'd never give up. Damn right I won't. I spat, my hand groping desperately for anything to use. My fingers brushed against the syringe. Without thinking, I snatched it up and jabbed it into his neck. His eyes widened. For a moment nothing happened. Then his body jerked violently. His grip loosened, and he collapsed beside me, twitching. I scrambled up, gasping for breath, watching as he went limp. I didn't know if I had killed him, or if he was only unconscious, but I didn't care. I stumbled back to Daniel's side, clutching his hand, sobbing with relief and terror all at once. The room was silent again except for the beep of the machines. But the silence didn't last. The intercom crackled to life once more. Emily's voice dripping with venom. "Oh, Mama," she purred. "You're tougher than I thought. But tell me, how many times can you win before you finally lose?" My blood ran cold. And then from somewhere deep inside the hospital, a fire alarm shrieked. Red lights flashed, and smoke began seeping into the hallway. I froze. Was it real or another trap? Either way, Daniel couldn't move. If I didn't act fast, the fire, or whatever Emily had planned, would kill us both. I clutched his hand, whispering fiercely, "Hold on, son. Mama's not leaving you." And with smoke filling the air, I braced myself to push his entire bed toward safety. The shrill fire alarm wailed through the hospital, its piercing cry mixing with the flashing red lights that bathed the halls in a hellish glow. Smoke seeped under the door, curling like ghostly fingers into the room. My throat tightened, not just from the smoke but from fear. "Daniel, we have to move," I whispered, gripping his limp hand. His eyelids fluttered weakly, but he didn't answer. I tightened my jaw. He couldn't walk, but I wouldn't let that stop me. I unlocked the brakes on his bed and pushed with all my strength. The wheels squealed in protest, the metal frame heavy against my frail arms, but determination gave me power. The hallway outside was already filling with chaos. Nurses shouting, patients being wheeled out, people stumbling through the haze of smoke. Yet beneath it all, I felt something was wrong. The fire didn't smell right. It wasn't wood or paper burning. It was chemical, sharp, biting. Deliberate. This wasn't an accident. Emily's reach had set this in motion. I coughed hard, covering my mouth with the edge of my sleeve as I pushed Daniel's bed down the corridor. Every step was agony, my lungs screaming, but I kept going. "Help us!" I cried, my voice hoarse. But the staff were too busy, every face twisted with panic. We were alone. As we turned a corner, the smoke thickened. My vision blurred. I could barely see the exit sign glowing faintly ahead. Relief surged. If I could just reach that door, we'd survive. But then a shadow stepped into our path. Tall, broad, unmistakable. The same masked man from before, the one I thought I'd taken down with the syringe. My heart lurched. How was he still standing? His movements were slower, clumsier, but his eyes still burned with rage. And in his hand once again was the knife. He blocked the hallway completely. "You can't win, old woman," he growled through the mask. "She said you'd never leave alive." I froze, my body trembling. Behind me, Daniel groaned, his weak breath rattling in the smoke-filled air. My grip tightened on the bed's handles. I had two choices: face him head-on, or risk Daniel's life by trying to turn back through the choking smoke. I lifted my chin, forcing strength into my voice. "Then you'll have to go through me." The man lunged forward, raising the knife high. I pushed the bed with all my strength, ramming it straight into him. The wheels screeched as the heavy frame smashed against his legs. He stumbled, cursing, but didn't fall. I grabbed the four-pole again, swinging it wildly. The metal cracked against his arm, but he only roared in fury, raising the blade toward me. "Die already," he spat. I braced myself, knowing the knife was coming down, when suddenly from behind him, a powerful beam of light cut through the smoke. "Police! Drop the weapon now!" The man froze, startled. Red laser dots danced across his chest as officers emerged through the haze, weapons drawn. For a moment, hope filled me, but then he grabbed Daniel's bed, pulling the knife dangerously close to my son's throat. "Back off," he shouted, "or I finish him right here." My knees buckled. The world slowed. The officers hesitated, their guns trained, waiting for a single move. And I was caught in the middle, watching my son's life hang on the edge of a blade. The hallway was suffocating with smoke, fear, and silence, except for the beeping fire alarms echoing like death knells. Daniel lay unconscious on the hospital bed, the masked man pressing the cold edge of the knife against his throat. The faint red glow of the emergency lights reflected off the blade, making it shimmer like blood. "Back off," the man barked, his voice muffled but feral. His grip was trembling slightly, his body weakened from the earlier syringe attack, but his rage made him dangerous. The police froze, their weapons raised. One wrong twitch and my son's life would be gone. I stood at the foot of Daniel's bed, my chest rising and falling fast. My throat burned from the smoke, my body aching from strain, but I forced my mind to stay sharp. I had to think. I had to save him. "Listen to me," I said, my voice shaking but steady enough to catch his attention. "You don't want to do this. Killing him won't give you what you want." His head snapped toward me, eyes blazing through the mask. "Shut up. You don't know what I want." I swallowed hard. "Then tell me what you want. I'll give it to you. Just leave him out of this." The officers exchanged quick looks, keeping their guns trained but silent. They were waiting for me to buy time, and I knew it. The man hesitated, his chest heaving. He pressed the knife harder, and a tiny bead of blood appeared on Daniel's pale neck. My heart nearly stopped. "No," I cried. "Please." The man's hand trembled. He looked torn, as if battling something inside. Then he spat. "You don't get it, old woman. Emily owns everything. She promised me freedom if I got rid of you. But now she says I have to clean up all of it. Your boy, everything." Emily. Her name dripped from his lips like poison. So it was true. She was pulling the strings. I took a shaky step forward. The officers tensed, but I raised my hand slightly, signaling them to wait. This was my fight. "You think Emily will keep her promise?" I asked softly, my voice cutting through the haze. "Look at yourself. She's using you, just like she used me. When you're done, she'll discard you like trash." His eyes flickered doubt just for a second. "Shut up," he roared again, though less certain. I pressed on, desperation giving me courage. "If you kill my son, you lose everything. The police will kill you right here in this hallway. Do you think Emily will save you then? Do you think she cares?" His breathing grew ragged, his grip faltering. The knife wavered slightly. That was my chance. I lunged forward, grabbing the bed frame and shoving it hard. The wheels screeched as it jolted forward, knocking him off balance. He stumbled, cursing, but still clung to the knife. The officers shouted, "Drop it! Drop the weapon!" He swung the blade wildly, slashing at the air, his movements erratic. Smoke curled around us, making the scene look like a nightmare. "Stop!" I screamed. "You don't want this. Look at me, look at me." And for a moment he did. His eyes locked with mine, filled with torment, confusion, and fury. I saw something human there. Something broken. "You don't have to end this way," I whispered, my voice trembling. "Put the knife down. Let him live. Let yourself live." His hand quivered. The blade lowered, just slightly. The officers inched forward. One of them gave a silent hand signal. They were ready to strike. But then a loud crack echoed through the building. A ceiling tile broke loose, crashing to the floor with a thunderous bang. The man flinched, startled. And in that split second of chaos, his rage reignited. With a howl, he grabbed Daniel by the collar, dragging him halfway off the bed. The knife pressed dangerously close again. "No one moves," he bellowed, his voice raw. "I'll slit his throat right now." My heart nearly gave out. I could barely breathe, watching my son dangle between life and death. The officers froze again, weapons steady but restrained. I clenched my fists, tears streaming down my face. I couldn't let this end here. "Then take me," I shouted suddenly, my voice piercing through the alarm. "Kill me instead. Leave him. Take me." The man froze, his chest heaving. His eyes widened behind the mask. "You?" "Yes," I cried, stepping forward. "I'm the one Emily wants gone. I'm the reason you're here. So do it. Kill me. But let him live." The hallway went silent. Even the officers seemed stunned by my plea. For a moment, the man's arm trembled violently, as though warring with himself. Then slowly he pushed Daniel back onto the bed. But instead of lowering the knife, he turned it toward me. My stomach dropped. "You want to die," he rasped. "Fine. Then you die first." He lunged at me, knife raised high. And the officers moved at the same time, shouting. "Now!" Gunfire erupted, deafening in the narrow hallway. I screamed, ducking low as the world exploded in flashes of light, smoke and thunder. The masked man jerked violently, his body twisting, but even as the bullet struck, his knife hand kept driving forward, aimed straight at me. The last thing I saw before the world blurred was the blade glinting inches from my chest. Time slowed. The hallway was filled with smoke, flashing lights, and the deafening roar of gunfire. My heart hammered in my chest so loudly it drowned everything else out. The knife in his hand gleamed under the red glow of the emergency lights, cutting through the chaos like death itself. I felt the rush of air as the blade came toward me. My knees buckled and I ducked instinctively, clutching my cane with both trembling hands. A hot sting burned across my shoulder as the knife sliced through my sweater. I gasped, stumbling back, nearly losing my footing. The officer's shouts blended into the crack of more gunfire. The masked man jerked violently as bullets tore into him. Blood sprayed across the white walls, dark and thick, staining everything in sight. Still he pressed forward. His eyes, wild, burning, locked on me as though he'd already decided I was the last thing he'd take down with him. "Die with me," he rasped, voice bubbling with blood. I raised my cane out of sheer desperation. His knife came down again, hard. With a loud crack, the wooden cane split the force of the strike. The blade skidded off, slashing deep into the wall beside my head. Plaster and dust rained down. The officers surged forward. One tackled him from behind, slamming him to the ground. The knife clattered across the floor, spinning until it stopped at my feet. I staggered back, chest heaving, staring at the bloodied figure writhing under the officer's weight. They pinned his arms, cuffed him, shouting commands I could barely hear over the pounding in my ears. Daniel lay still on the bed, pale but alive. That was all that mattered. My knees gave way and I sank against the wall, shaking violently. Tears streamed down my face, hot and unstoppable. My body ached, my shoulder throbbed from the cut, but I didn't care. My son was breathing. He was safe for now. One officer looked at me, eyes full of urgency. "Ma'am, are you hurt?" I'll live," I whispered hoarsely. The masked man let out a horrible gurgling laugh from the floor. Blood pooled beneath him, yet he smiled through the mask. "You think it's over," he choked. "You think you're safe? Emily is already here." My stomach dropped. My body went cold. The officers glanced at one another, unsettled. "Secure him," one barked. "Get him out of here." But his words rang in my head like a curse. Emily is already here. Could it be true? Was she inside this hospital? Watching? Waiting for her chance? As they dragged the bleeding man down the hall, his laughter echoing like a nightmare, I clutched Daniel's hand tightly. My lips trembled as I whispered to him, "Don't leave me, son. Not now. Not when she's still out there." Then from the corner of my eye I saw it. Across the smoky corridor, through the blur of flashing lights, a figure stood at the far end, calm, motionless, watching. A woman. Her hair gleamed under the emergency lights. And though I couldn't see her face clearly, my heart knew. It was Emily. She was here. And she wasn't running anymore. The sight of her froze me to the spot. Emily stood at the far end of the smoky corridor, half shrouded by shadows, calm as a predator waiting for its prey. My heart pounded in my ears, drowning out the alarms, the chaos, the shouts of police and nurses scrambling through the hospital. For a moment everything shrank until it was just me, my dying son on the bed behind me, and the woman who had turned our lives into a nightmare. She tilted her head slightly, a cruel smile curling her lips. Even from this distance I could feel her eyes burning into me. Calculating, mocking, daring me to come closer. "Emily," I whispered, my throat tight. My voice cracked from smoke and exhaustion, but I forced the words out. "It's over. They have your man. You're finished." Her laugh was soft, almost gentle, but it chilled me to the bone. She stepped forward, heels clicking against the tile, each step deliberate. "Finished? Oh, you poor foolish woman. Do you really think a couple of policemen and some hospital chaos can stop me?" The officers turned at the sound of her voice, weapons raised. "Mom, stay where you are. Hands where we can see them." Emily ignored them. She slipped her hands into the pockets of her coat, eyes locked on mine as if we were the only two people in the world. "You know," she said, her voice smooth as silk, "I almost admired you. You were supposed to be easy." An old lady, confused, slipping away thanks to the meds I carefully arranged. "But you?" She shook her head, smiling bitterly. "You just wouldn't die quietly." My blood boiled. My fists clenched around my cane. "You tried to kill me. You tried to kill my son. And for what? Money." Her eyes glittered. "Not just money. Power. Freedom. The life I deserve. Daniel was weak, your whole family was weak. You clung to love, to loyalty, to old traditions. Me? I take what I want. And no one stops me." The officers barked again. "Hands up now." But Emily moved faster than I expected. In one smooth motion, she pulled a small pistol from her coat pocket and aimed it directly at me. The hallway erupted. Shouts, the click of safeties, the shuffle of boots on tile. "No," I cried, throwing my arms wide, stepping in front of Daniel's bed. "If you want blood, Emily, take mine. But you won't touch my son again." Her smile widened. "Gladly." The gunshot rang out, deafening. The flash lit up the smoke-filled hall like lightning. I braced for the pain, for the end. But instead, an officer slammed into me, shoving me down hard to the floor. The bullet shattered the glass window behind me, spraying shards across Daniel's bed. Chaos exploded. More shots fired, officers ducked. The intercom buzzed with emergency calls. I scrambled to my knees, clutching my cane. My shoulder throbbed, my lungs burned, but adrenaline pushed me forward. Emily moved like a shadow, slipping past the first officer, shoving another into the wall. She was quick. Too quick. The smoke gave her cover, and the flashing lights turned her into a ghost. I gripped my cane tight, crawling toward Daniel's bed. He stirred weakly, his lips parting. "Ma." "I'm here, baby," I whispered, pressing his hand to my cheek. "Stay with me. Don't close your eyes." Then Emily's voice cut through the chaos. "This ends tonight." She was closer. Too close. I turned and saw her emerging from the smoke, gun still raised, eyes blazing with fury. Something inside me snapped. I rose to my feet, cane in hand, and stood tall between her and my son. I was shaking, my body frail, but my spirit. Oh, my spirit burned brighter than it ever had. "You're right, Emily," I said, my voice raw but strong. "This ends tonight. But not the way you think." Her finger tightened on the trigger. I charged. With a scream that came from the very depths of my soul, I swung the cane with all my strength. It cracked against her wrist, sending the gun clattering to the floor. Emily shrieked, clutching her arm. Rage twisted her beautiful face into something monstrous. She lunged at me, claws bared, knocking me backward against the bed. We grappled, two women locked in a battle of survival. She slammed my head against the rail, stars exploding in my vision. Her hands closed around my throat, squeezing. "You should have stayed in your grave," she hissed. I choked, my vision dimming. But my hand found the broken shard of glass from the window. I gripped it tight, ignoring the sting as it cut into my palm. With one desperate cry, I slashed across her arm. Emily screamed, blood spraying across the sheets. Her grip loosened. I shoved her back with every ounce of strength left in me. The officers seized the chance. They rushed forward, pinning her down, forcing her arms behind her back as she kicked and spat like a wild animal. "Get off me. You don't understand," she shrieked. "That money is mine. It's mine." Her screams echoed as they dragged her down the hall, disappearing into the smoke. And just like that, silence fell. I collapsed against Daniel's bed, trembling, tears streaming down my face. My whole body ached, every breath burned, but I was alive. My son was alive. The nurse rushed in, checking Daniel's vitals, adjusting the machines. An officer crouched beside me, his voice gentle. "Ma'am, it's over. She's in custody. You're safe now." Safe. The word felt heavy, unreal. I looked at Daniel, his chest rising slowly, steadily. His hand was still in mine. I smiled through my tears. "We made it, son. We made it." Weeks later, Daniel recovered enough to sit up in bed. The trial was swift. Emily's crimes, attempted murder, conspiracy, fraud, were exposed to the world. Her mask of charm shattered, revealing the darkness underneath. As for me, I walked out of that hospital changed. My body weaker, yes, but my spirit stronger than ever. And I learned something I want you, my dear listeners, to carry with you. Evil hides in sweet smiles and soft words. Sometimes it wears the face of family. But no matter how dark the night gets, courage, truth, and love will always find a way to shine through. So if you're watching this right now, take this lesson with you. Never let anyone convince you you're too weak, too old, or too small to fight back. Strength doesn't come from the body, it comes from the heart. And let me remind you again, please subscribe, like this story, and click the notification button so you won't miss the next one. I want to know, from which part of the country are you watching from? Comment below and share your thoughts. This has been my story. I am Margaret from Georgia, 72 years old. And I am still standing.